Japan is home to more centenarians than anywhere else in the world. Over 90,000 people live past 100 there, and they're not relying on expensive gyms or fancy supplements. Meanwhile, here in the US, we spend billions every year on fitness programs, yet our seniors often struggle with mobility, balance, and independence. So what's going on here? Now, some experts argue it's genetics. Others say it's diet. But after 2 decades in the medical field, I can tell you this. The truth isn't what most people think. The real secret lies in 6 incredibly simple daily movements that Japanese elders have been practicing for generations. They don't even consider them exercise. Yet modern science now confirms these movements protect the brain, strengthen the body, and can literally add years to your life. And let me be clear. I know some of you might be skeptical. How can something so basic outperform expensive workouts? But stay with me, because when we reach number 1 on this list, you'll see why researchers around the world are calling it a breakthrough in healthy aging. Before we dive into these 6 powerful movements, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. That support gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more life-changing health tips every week. So buckle up. You're about to discover practices that could redefine how you age, and the very first movement might already surprise you. Starting off our list is something that may look almost too ordinary to matter, but hidden beneath its simplicity is a refined scientific formula. In Japan, elders call it Sampo, a form of slow, intentional walking, often done in the early morning before breakfast. At first glance, it seems like nothing special. But when researchers looked closer, they found that this mindful, measured pace, combined with controlled breathing, acts like natural medicine for the nervous system. It balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches, reduces stress, regulates blood pressure, and even slows the stiffening of arteries as we age. The difference between Sampo and the fast-paced power walking common in the West lies in the rhythm. Japanese elders typically breathe in over 2 steps, hold that breath for the next 2, then exhale slowly over 4 steps. This synchronized flow of movement and breath creates a cardiovascular harmony that fast walking simply can't replicate. In fact, a 2021 study published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity showed that seniors who practiced just 30 minutes of controlled slow walking each day reduced their risk of falls by 25%. And remember, falls are one of the leading causes of disability and loss of independence in older adults. I'll never forget one of my patients, an 82-year-old woman from Texas. She struggled with high blood pressure and often felt unsteady walking around her home. After I introduced her to Sampo, she committed to practicing it every morning. Within 3 months, her blood pressure dropped from 160/95 to a steady 135/80. But more importantly, she told me she felt clear-headed and secure in her steps, so much so that she began strolling around her garden without relying on a cane. Stories like hers remind me how small, intentional changes can transform health more than any pill ever could. There's another hidden benefit. Sampo encourages your entire foot, from heel to arch to toe, to make full contact with the ground. That action engages 33 joints and activates sensory receptors on the sole of the foot that send constant feedback to the brain. This feedback sharpens balance, spatial awareness, and reflexes, things treadmills and high-speed workouts rarely train. So how do you start? Keep it simple. Begin with just 10 minutes of slow walking a day. As you step, follow the breathing rhythm. Inhale for 2 steps, hold for 2, exhale for 4. Once this feels natural, build gradually toward 20 or 30 minutes. In only a few weeks, many people notice they feel calmer, steadier, and even more focused, as if their body and mind reset with each morning walk. And this is only the beginning. Moving up our list, the next practice is even more powerful, because it's tied to a childhood memory shared by nearly every Japanese elder. and you'll be surprised at how it's been quietly safeguarding their health for nearly a century. Number 5. Radio Taiso. Can you believe an entire nation pauses every morning just to perform this single routine? That's exactly what happens in Japan. Since the 1920s, millions of people, from school children to retirees, have followed along to a broadcast of gentle stretching and calisthenics known as Radio Taiso. It started as a way to unify a country after the war, but what makes it remarkable is how it continues to thrive a century later, with nearly every generation participating. On the surface, the exercises look almost too simple. You'll see people raising their arms overhead, bending side to side, twisting gently at the waist, or lifting their heels in rhythm with the music. But behind this simplicity lies a carefully designed formula. Each motion encourages circulation, loosens stiff joints, and engages muscles without placing stress on the body. In fact, many Japanese describe Radio Taiso as pressing a reset button for their bodies, just a few minutes that wake up the entire musculoskeletal system and prepare it for the day. Modern science is now confirming what generations have intuitively known. A large-scale study in Tokyo revealed that adults over the age of 70 who practiced Radio Taiso daily had bone density levels 12% higher than their peers who didn't. That difference is significant. Higher bone density means stronger skeletal support, fewer fractures, and more independence in later life. And because osteoporosis is one of the silent threats of aging, this routine functions almost like invisible armor for the elderly. But the benefits extend far beyond bones. Cardiologists in Japan have noted that just 3 to 5 minutes of these rhythmic movements improve blood circulation enough to lower morning spikes in blood pressure. Physical therapists report that seniors who stick to this habit maintain flexibility in their shoulders, hips, and spine well into their 80s and 90s. Even balance improves, since many of the movements train the body to shift weight smoothly from one foot to the other. I once observed a group of retirees in Osaka Park performing Radio Taiso together. The music played from a small radio, tinny but cheerful, and more than 50 people, some in business suits, others in casual clothes, moved in unison. What struck me wasn't just the exercise itself, but the energy. People were smiling, laughing, and clapping at the end. For them, this wasn't just a physical routine. It was a ritual that nourished both the body and the spirit, reinforcing community while strengthening health. And perhaps that's the hidden genius of Radio Taiso. Because it's so accessible, no one feels excluded. You don't need expensive shoes, a gym membership, or even much space. Just a willingness to move with the music. Even a tiny apartment is enough. That universality is what has kept it alive for over 100 years. So if you're looking for a simple, science-backed practice that can literally add years of mobility and independence to your life, consider starting your mornings the Japanese way. Think of it as pushing the on button for your body. Just a handful of minutes, but the effect lingers for hours. Our next move will surprise you, because it's a posture many Americans consider impossible once they reach old age. Number 4. Deep Squat Rest. This isn't just another exercise, it's humanity's original chair. Long before we had sofas, recliners, or office seats, the deep squat was how people naturally rested, cooked, shared meals, and even gave birth. In much of the world, especially across Asia, this posture is still part of daily life. Yet in the US and many Western countries, we've lost the ability to squat deeply because of our dependence on furniture and sedentary habits. That loss has consequences: stiff hips, weak knees, digestive sluggishness, and poor balance. So why is this simple resting posture so powerful? First, it keeps the hips and knees mobile in a way that no chair can. When you squat deeply, the hip joints rotate and the knees flex through their full natural range of motion. Orthopedic specialists in Japan often describe this as lubricating the joints. In fact, One physician famously said that every squat is like adding a drop of oil to the hinges of your body. Over time, this mobility helps protect against arthritis, joint pain, and the stiffness that makes aging feel like a slow decline. Second, squatting isn't just about the joints. It also supports digestion. When the body is in a deep squat, the angle of the pelvis changes, aligning the intestines in a way that makes bowel movements easier and more efficient. That's why some modern health companies have marketed stool-like devices to mimic this effect on Western toilets. But for those who can practice the posture itself, it's the most natural way to support gut health, relieve constipation, and reduce strain on the colon. There's also the strength factor. Holding a deep squat, even for short periods, activates the core, glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. For older adults, this translates into better functional strength, the kind of power you need to rise from a chair, climb stairs, or catch yourself if you trip. I worked with a patient in California, an 81-year-old woman who could no longer get out of a chair without pushing herself up with her arms. After just 2 months of practicing supported deep squats, her ability to stand without assistance improved dramatically. She told me it felt like getting a piece of her independence back. But here's the surprising part. Regaining this ability doesn't take hours of training. You can start with just a few seconds a day, holding on to a sturdy object for support if needed. Over time, as your body remembers the movement, you'll find yourself staying lower, longer, and more comfortably. Physical therapists often encourage patients to aim for a 90-second squat rest as a daily goal, calling it one of the most effective mobility drills for aging adults. And don't forget the hidden benefit: balance. To maintain a squat, your body must make constant micro-adjustments, engaging stabilizing muscles in your feet, ankles, and core. This is the very system that keeps you from falling. And as neurologists in the US point out, balance training is one of the most overlooked yet critical parts of longevity. By practicing the deep squat, you're not just working joints and muscles, you're fine-tuning your body's internal gyroscope. So yes, the deep squat is more than just an exercise. It's a return to our biological roots, a natural chair designed by evolution itself. It restores mobility, strengthens vital muscles, boosts digestion, and sharpens balance. And the best part? You don't need a gym, equipment, or even much space. Just a willingness to rediscover a posture your ancestors once relied on daily. And now, we're getting into the balance secret that even neurologists in the US are excited about. Number 3. One leg standing. It sounds almost too simple, but this is actually a neurological test that many neurologists use right inside their clinics. Standing on one leg may look like child's play, but for older adults, it's one of the most accurate windows into balance, brain health, and even life expectancy. Let's break it down. When you lift one foot off the ground, your entire vestibular system, the network of sensors in your inner ear, eyes, and brain that control balance, immediately switches on. Tiny stabilizing muscles in your ankles and hips fire rapidly to keep you steady, while your nervous system constantly recalibrates to prevent you from tipping over. For younger people, this happens so quickly they barely notice it. But as we age, those reflexes slow down. Practicing one leg standing is like running a daily diagnostic test and training session all at once. Why does this matter so much? Because falls are the #1 cause of injury-related death among older Americans. Every year, more than 36 million seniors in the US experience a fall, and 1 out of every 5 of those falls leads to serious injury. That's why neurologists emphasize that balance training isn't optional. It's a matter of survival. By practicing standing on one leg, you're essentially teaching your brain and body to prevent the single most dangerous event in aging. The research here is astonishing. In 2022, the British Journal of Sports Medicine published a study that followed more than 1,700 adults over 7 years. The results were shocking. people who could not hold a one-leg stance for at least 10 seconds had an 84% higher risk of dying during that period compared to those who could. That's not a small difference. That's nearly doubling your risk. The conclusion was clear. Balance is not just about preventing falls, it's a predictor of overall longevity. So how can you use this in your own life? The method is straightforward but powerful. Twice a day, stand near a wall or sturdy counter for safety. Lift one foot just a few inches off the floor and hold the position for 30 seconds. Switch legs and repeat. At first, you might wobble or need to tap your foot down, and that's okay. With daily practice, your nervous system adapts, your muscles grow stronger, and your balance sharpens. Some therapists even suggest brushing your teeth while standing on one leg, turning a mundane routine into a life-extending habit. I once worked with a 75-year-old man in Houston who had fallen twice in the same year. His confidence was shattered. He avoided walking outside alone, fearing the next fall could send him to the hospital. We introduced one-leg standing as part of his therapy, starting with just a few seconds. After 3 months, he could hold 30 seconds on each leg without touching the wall. More importantly, his confidence returned. He told me it felt like he had gotten his freedom back. And that's the real gift of this practice. Independence. Balance is what lets you walk unassisted, climb stairs, or simply move through daily life without fear. Losing it is one of the earliest warning signs of decline. But the good news is that regaining it doesn't require fancy equipment or long hours. Just a few focused minutes each day can rewire your nervous system and dramatically change your trajectory of aging. Even more powerful, our next movement is tied directly to the way the Japanese eat and live, blending culture and longevity into one remarkable practice. Number 2. Floor-sitting transitions. Americans are used to chairs, but in Japan, people are used to the floor, and that difference may be one of the simplest anti-aging medicines in existence. The act of sitting down on the floor and then standing back up seems ordinary, even trivial. Yet hidden inside this routine is a full-body workout and a secret to lifelong mobility. Every time you lower yourself to the floor, you engage the muscles of your thighs, hips, and core. Then, every time you rise back up, those same muscles fire again, forcing them to stay strong. It's essentially resistance training disguised as daily living. No gym, no weights, just the body working against gravity. Doctors sometimes call this the hidden gym because it happens dozens of times a day without anyone even labeling it as exercise. Why does this matter so much? Because weakness in the thighs and hips is one of the strongest predictors of frailty. When those muscles fade, everyday tasks, standing from a chair, climbing stairs, getting out of bed, become struggles. By practicing floor-sitting transitions, you're directly training the exact movement patterns that keep you independent. And independence is the single most valuable asset in old age. Research on longevity hotspots makes this connection clear. In Okinawa, Japan, home to some of the longest living people on Earth, elders often sit on tatami mats instead of chairs. That means they transition to and from the floor multiple times a day, every day, well into their 80s, 90s, and beyond. Observers have noted that this habit forces them to maintain leg strength, hip mobility, and balance, all of which contribute to their exceptional vitality. It's not uncommon to see an Okinawan centenarian gracefully rising from the floor at an age when many Americans require assistance just to stand up from a chair. There's also a neurological component. Each time you stand from the floor, your brain has to coordinate balance, posture, and movement in perfect sequence. This keeps neural pathways sharp, reinforcing what's known as motor memory. Think of it as software updates for your nervous system, small but frequent upgrades that maintain performance. One of my patients, a 78-year-old retired teacher, started practicing floor transitions after a hip surgery. At first, she needed her hands to push off, but over 3 months of gradual practice, she was able to stand up with minimal support. She told me it wasn't just about strength, it gave her confidence back. She could play with her grandkids on the carpet without worrying she wouldn't be able to get up again. Safety, of course, is important. If you're new to this practice, start slowly. Use a yoga mat for comfort, and keep a sturdy chair or wall nearby for assistance. Begin by sitting cross-legged, then rising with the help of your hands if needed. Over time, challenge yourself to rely less on your arms and more on your legs and core. Even a few repetitions each day can bring noticeable improvements in strength and stability. And here's the remarkable part. Scientists have found that the ability to sit down on the floor and rise without using your hands strongly correlates with longevity. It's a simple test, but a powerful predictor. Those who can perform it with ease are far less likely to suffer falls, fractures, or early mortality. So while it may seem like just a cultural quirk, floor-sitting transitions are in fact one of the most practical science-backed anti-aging tools available. They blend strength training, balance work, and neurological conditioning into a single, everyday habit. And finally, the number one move, a secret so subtle you won't believe how powerful it is. Number 1. Towel twist. It sounds unusual, doesn't it? Yet this is the kind of neuromuscular exercise that almost no one outside of Japan has ever heard of. They call it the towel twist. On the surface, it looks like you're just wringing water out of a towel. But what's actually happening is a powerful isometric contraction that lights up both your muscles and your peripheral nerves. Here's how it works. When you grip the towel firmly and twist it in opposite directions, the muscles in your hands, forearms, wrists, and even shoulders contract and hold tension without any movement at the joint. This is what we call isometric exercise, an exertion where the muscle works hard without changing length. It may seem simple, but this type of training is incredibly effective at strengthening the grip and waking up nerve pathways that often go underused as we age. And grip strength is no small matter. Studies consistently show that weak hand grip is one of the strongest predictors of mortality in older adults. In fact, some researchers consider it a vital sign of aging, just as important as blood pressure or pulse. Lose your grip, and you lose your independence. Opening jars becomes difficult. Carrying groceries feels impossible, and even holding onto a railing for balance can fail when you need it most. But strengthen your grip, and you add years of functional ability to your life. There's a neurological dimension too. The towel twist doesn't just train muscles, it stimulates sensory nerves in the hands and arms. That sensory feedback travels up to the brain, improving coordination and sharpening motor control. It's like flipping on a switch for your entire motor system, reactivating circuits that may have grown sluggish from disuse. Some neurologists in Japan have even likened it to rebooting the body's hardware. Let me share a story. A 78-year-old man in New York came to therapy after noticing his hands were getting weaker. He couldn't open bottles easily, and his handwriting had become shaky. We introduced the towel twist as part of his daily routine, 2 sets of 20 twists, alternating directions. After just 6 weeks, his grip strength had increased by 15%. More importantly, he felt capable again. Tasks like buttoning shirts or holding a coffee mug were no longer a struggle. He joked that something as simple as twisting a towel had given him back his dignity. And the beauty of this exercise is its accessibility. No machines, no gym memberships, just a towel. Anyone, anywhere, can do it. Even those with arthritis can start gently, adjusting the level of resistance simply by how tightly they twist. Over time, as strength builds, the movements become smoother, and the nervous system learns to fire more efficiently. Think of it like this. Every twist is a tiny spark, recharging the body's electrical grid. It looks humble, almost trivial, but inside that action, you're turning on the very systems that keep your hands strong, your nerves sharp, and your independence intact. This, more than anything else, shows that longevity isn't just about big workouts or complicated regimens. Sometimes it's the smallest, most overlooked practices that carry the biggest power. And in Japan, the towel twist has quietly helped countless older adults maintain the kind of strength that truly defines healthy aging. Longevity isn't just a matter of luck. It's the result of choices we make every single day. These simple movements are like a health savings account you invest in for your future self. The Japanese don't outlive us because of their genes. They outlive us because of their habits. If you found this valuable, share it with your parents or loved ones, because just 5 minutes a day can transform an entire lifetime. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be sharing more medical secrets here that you simply won't find anywhere else.